When my son told me, "She's not your granddaughter anymore," something inside me went very still. Not broken. Just still. I didn't cry and I didn't argue. I simply looked at him, the same boy whose hands once clung to mine on his first day of school. And I said softly, "All right, my dear. If that's what you think is best." He turned away before I could see the tears in his eyes. Or maybe he didn't have any. I don't know anymore. What I do remember is the sound of the door closing. Not a slam, not even a click. Just that quiet, final sound that told me my family had shut me out. I sat there on the couch, my hands trembling a little, staring at the framed photo on the wall, the one of Lily in her yellow dress. My granddaughter, my sunshine, the little girl who loved baking cookies in my kitchen and used to call me Nana Bird because I always hummed while cooking. That day, the house felt heavier than it ever had before. Even the clock on the wall seemed to tick slower, as if time itself didn't want to move forward without her laughter. I thought about calling Daniel back. Just once to say, "Please don't do this." But something stopped me. Maybe pride, maybe exhaustion. Or maybe a mother's quiet, knowing that some wounds can't be forced to heal. So instead, I did what I'd always done when life got too loud. I made tea. I watched the steam rise, curling and disappearing, just like all the moments I wished I could take back. People think heartbreak is loud, shouting, crying, breaking things. But real heartbreak is silent. It's sitting alone in a room full of memories, knowing you can't touch any of them without them falling apart in your hands. And as I sat there, surrounded by silence, I whispered to myself, "One day, he'll understand." I didn't know then how long that one day would take, or how fate, in its strange, gentle way, would bring us back together. Not through anger, not through guilt, but through truth. A truth I had buried for almost 30 years. My name is Lorna Mitchell, and I've lived in the same little house on Maplewood Lane for almost 40 years. It's small, just 2 bedrooms and a creaky porch, but every wall holds a memory. If you look closely, you can still see the faint pencil marks on the kitchen doorframe, where I used to measure my son's height every birthday. "Look, Mom, I grew," Daniel would shout, standing tall on his toes. I'd laugh, tap his head and say, "That's cheating." "Danny!" He'd grin, that mischievous grin that could melt any worry in the world, and say, "Then I'll just grow faster, you'll see." And he did. He grew fast, taller than me before I was ready for it. Faster than I could keep up with, really. Daniel was my only child. After his father, Robert, passed away when Daniel was in high school, it was just the 2 of us. We leaned on each other. Dinner was always at the table, no matter how tired we were. We didn't have much, but we had peace. And sometimes that's more than enough. When Daniel met Claire, I remember thinking she was perfect for him. Smart, kind, polished. She had a calm way about her, the kind that draws people in. They met at the office, I think, during one of those late work nights he used to complain about. And within a year, they were married. I was happy for them, truly. When they bought their first home just a few miles away, I helped unpack the boxes, folding towels and lining drawers like any proud mother would. Claire thanked me, but there was a distance in her voice. Not unkind, just formal. Like I was a guest she didn't quite know how to talk to yet. I told myself it would change with time. That once Lily came along, the house would fill with warmth, and that invisible wall between us would come down. And for a while, it did. When Lily was born, my world became bright again. She had Daniel's eyes, deep brown and full of wonder, and Claire's soft features. I remember the first time I held her. She was so small that my hands trembled, afraid I'd break her. But when she opened her tiny fingers and wrapped them around mine, I felt something I hadn't felt since Robert passed. Hope. From then on, I became Nana Bird. Every Sunday they'd visit. Daniel would mow my lawn or fix something around the house while Claire helped in the kitchen, or at least tried to. And Lily, oh, she would run through the house, her giggles echoing off the walls like music. "Grandma, sing the bird song," she'd say, tugging at my apron. I'd hum the little tune my own mother used to sing to me while baking, and Lily would twirl in the middle of the kitchen, her little socks sliding on the tile. Those were the golden days. The kind of days you don't realize are golden until they're gone. Daniel was proud. You could see it in the way he looked at Lily. He worked long hours, climbing the corporate ladder, but he never missed a Sunday dinner. Not one. He'd always say, "Mom, family comes first, always." I believed him, but as the years passed, life, as it tends to do, got complicated. Daniel's work became more demanding. Claire returned to her career. Lily started school, piano lessons, swimming. The visits grew shorter, then less frequent. A Sunday here, a quick drop-off there. And though my heart ached quietly, I didn't say a word. I knew they were busy, building their life. Still, I'd keep the house ready every weekend, just in case they decided to stop by. I'd bake Lily's favorite lemon muffins, put out fresh flowers, and sit by the window with my tea, waiting for the familiar sound of Daniel's car in the driveway. Sometimes they came. Sometimes they didn't. And on those quiet Sundays when no one showed up, I'd tell myself, next week for sure. It's funny how mothers keep hope alive even when it starts to hurt. We never stop believing our children will come home, even if they don't call, even if they forget. I remember one night, I sat on the porch and watched the light in Daniel's house from across the park. It was warm and glowing, and I could almost see them moving inside. Lily's shadow jumping, Claire's figure passing by the window. I smiled, imagining laughter. I didn't need to be there. It was enough knowing they were happy, or so I thought, because happiness can be deceiving, especially when it hides something you never expected to find. At first, I thought Claire's quietness was just her personality. She wasn't rude, just reserved, cautious in her words. I tried my best to make her feel comfortable. I'd compliment her cooking, even when it was just store-bought pasta. I'd bring her flowers from my garden, and I never showed up without calling first. Still, there was always a sort of politeness between us. Not hostility but never closeness either. We'd smile, make small talk, and that was it. There were no long chats over tea, no shared laughter about the past. It was as though we were both walking on eggshells, each afraid to step too far. Daniel, bless him, never noticed. He was the kind of man who believed that if everyone was smiling, everything was fine. He didn't see the tension, the hesitation in his wife's tone when I'd ask about Lily's school. He didn't hear the pauses, the subtle corrections. "Oh, we don't let Lily eat sweets that often, Mrs. Mitchell." I wasn't Mrs. Mitchell to her. Never Mom, never even Lorna. Always Mrs. Mitchell. One afternoon, I invited them all over for Sunday dinner, just like old times. I made Daniel's favorite roast chicken and Lily's lemon muffins. Claire arrived carrying a salad in a glass bowl. She smiled, tight and formal, and said, "We won't stay too long today. Lily has homework." During dinner, everything felt rehearsed. Claire spoke about her new project at work. Daniel nodded, and Lily quietly picked at her food. When I offered her another muffin, Claire gently said, "No, thank you. She's had enough sugar this week." Her tone wasn't cruel, just controlled. But Lily's eyes dropped to her plate. After they left, I stood in the doorway watching their car disappear down the street. The house fell silent again. I washed the dishes slowly, one by one, and found myself whispering, "She's just trying to be a good mother, that's all." And maybe she was. Still, something inside me knew the closeness I'd once had with Daniel was slipping away. And no matter how tightly I held on, it was like trying to catch mist in my hands. A few weeks later, Daniel came by alone. He looked tired, lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. He sat at the table rubbing his temples. "Work's been rough, Mom," he said. "Claire's been stressed and Lily's growing fast. We're just trying to keep up." I nodded, refilling his cup. "You're doing your best, dear." "That's what matters." He smiled faintly. Then he looked at me and said something that stayed with me. "Claire worries sometimes that you think she's keeping Lily from you." My hand froze halfway to the sugar bowl. Oh, why would she think that? He shrugged. You know how it is. You and Dad. Your marriage wasn't easy. Claire just doesn't want old patterns to repeat. Old patterns. That phrase sat heavy in my chest. He didn't mean harm by it, but it stung, like a soft reminder of something I'd buried long ago. I smiled to hide the ache. Tell her she has nothing to worry about. I only want to love my granddaughter, not raise her. Daniel reached across the table, squeezing my hand. I know that, Mom, I do. He left not long after, promising to call. And for a while he did, until the calls became shorter, then rarer. One morning, I was in the garden when I heard laughter from across the park. It was Lily, unmistakably her laugh. I peeked through the hedge and saw them having a picnic, Daniel, Claire, and Lily sitting under the oak tree. I waved, smiling. But they didn't see me. I watched for a moment longer, then quietly turned back to my garden. That night I sat by the window with my tea thinking. I wondered when my place in their life had changed, when I'd gone from part of the family to someone they visit when they have time. There was no clear moment, no argument, no decision, just slow distance, like watching a shadow stretch farther with every sunset. Then came the day that changed everything, though I didn't know it yet. It was Lily's 7th birthday. I had found a small silver bracelet with her initials engraved. Simple, nothing fancy, but full of love. I wrapped it carefully and drove to their house. Claire opened the door. She smiled, that same polite smile, and said, "Oh, Lorna, you didn't have to come all this way. We're actually heading out soon." "Just for a moment," I said. "I won't stay." Lily came running down the stairs, her hair in curls. "Nana Bird!" she squealed. She threw her arms around me, and I felt that warmth again, the kind that fills all the empty corners in your heart. I gave her the little box. She opened it, her eyes wide. "It's beautiful!" Before I could say anything, Claire's voice came gently but firmly. "Lily, remember what we talked about. We're not wearing jewelry from anyone right now, okay?" Lily froze, her small fingers clutching the box. Daniel stepped forward awkwardly. "Mom, maybe next time." I nodded, smiling as best I could. Of course. I just wanted to see her happy birthday face. They left soon after. And as the door closed behind them, I felt that strange stillness again. The kind that comes before something breaks. That night, I took out an old photo album, Daniel as a baby, me and Robert holding him at the park, his first bike, his graduation. I traced my fingers over those pictures and whispered, "I did my best, didn't I?" Outside, the wind began to rise, rustling the leaves against the window. I didn't know then that the past, the one I'd tried so hard to bury, was about to come back. And it would take everything from me before giving anything back. I still remember the day I realized I had started walking on eggshells around my own son. It wasn't because of anything he said directly. It was because of how careful he had started to sound. Careful, the way you speak to a stranger you don't want to upset. It began with little things. A missed phone call. A text left unanswered. A Sunday visit canceled with a quick message. "Sorry, Mom, Claire's got a headache. Maybe next week." At first, I didn't think much of it. Everyone gets busy. Everyone gets tired. But after the 3rd or 4th time, I started baking smaller batches of muffins, just so I wouldn't have to throw so many away. Then one day, I saw Claire at the grocery store. I was picking out apples when I heard her voice a few aisles over. She was talking to another woman. I think a friend from Lily's school. Her voice was calm, but the words pierced right through me. "She means well," Claire said softly, "but sometimes she oversteps. You know how some mothers just can't let go?" The friend murmured something and Claire replied, "I just want our home to be ours, not hers." I froze. My hands shook as I placed the apples back. I told myself I had probably misunderstood, that I'd caught half a sentence. But the ache in my chest told me I hadn't. I drove home slowly that day. The road felt longer than usual. When I got inside, I sat at the kitchen table and looked at the empty chair across from me, the one Daniel used to sit in, laughing with a full plate of food. Now it was just an empty space, full of echoes. I tried to shake it off. I told myself Claire was just protective of her home, that it didn't mean she didn't care. But after that day, every visit felt monitored. She'd hover nearby whenever I spoke to Lily, gently correcting me about everything from snacks to bedtime stories. Once, I gave Lily a small notebook, pink with gold stars, and told her it was for her thoughts and dreams. She loved it instantly, scribbling hearts and little drawings. But the next week when I visited, the notebook was gone. When I asked about it, Lily looked at her mother nervously and said, "Mommy said I should use the school one instead." I smiled at her, pretending it didn't sting. But it did. One evening, Daniel called. His voice was distant, like he was already somewhere else. "Mom," he said, "Claire's been a bit uncomfortable lately. She feels like you might not always respect her boundaries." I went silent. He continued, "It's nothing serious, just maybe don't stop by unannounced anymore, all right?" I swallowed hard. "Of course, dear," I said quietly. I didn't realize I was making anyone uncomfortable. "I know you didn't," he said. "You just care too much sometimes. Care too much. It's strange how love can be turned into a fault when people stop needing it." After that, I stopped visiting unless invited. Weeks turned into months. I kept busy with little things, gardening, volunteering, reading. But no matter how I filled my days, the silence at night always found me. Then one afternoon, I received a message from Daniel. "Hey, Mom, Lily has a school recital next weekend. Thought you might like to come." My heart leapt. I spent the whole week preparing, pressed my best blouse, bought a small bouquet of daisies for Lily. When I arrived, the hall was buzzing with parents and laughter. I saw them from a distance, Daniel waving, Claire adjusting Lily's dress. I smiled and made my way over. Claire turned, her face polite but tight. "Oh, Lorna, I didn't realize Daniel invited you." Her words weren't cruel, just surprised. "Of course," I said softly. "Wouldn't miss it for the world." During the recital, Lily's eyes found me in the crowd, and she smiled, that same bright smile that used to light up my kitchen. For a moment, everything felt right again. After the show, I approached to give her the flowers. She hugged me quickly before Claire stepped in. "Let's put those in water right away, sweetheart," she said, gently taking them. Then, turning to me, she added, "Thank you for coming, Lorna. It means a lot." Her tone said something else. This was fine. But don't make a habit of it. Daniel looked at me as if he wanted to say something, but didn't. He never did when it mattered most. That night, I cried for the first time in years. Not loudly, just quiet tears that slipped down while I sat in the dark. I wasn't angry at Claire, and I wasn't angry at Daniel. I was angry at myself for not knowing how to fix it, for not understanding where things had gone wrong. I started looking back, wondering if I had been too present. If my advice, my small gestures, had made them feel watched or judged. I never meant to intrude. All I ever wanted was to help, to be useful, to be loved. But love, I've learned, can change shape. Sometimes it becomes duty. Sometimes it becomes silence. And sometimes it becomes distance so wide that no one remembers how to cross it anymore. A few weeks later, Daniel came by alone again. He looked uneasy, pacing around the living room. "Mom, did you ever tell Claire anything about Dad?" I froze. "What about him?" I asked carefully. He hesitated. "She found an old letter in some of your boxes. Something he wrote to you. It didn't make a lot of sense, but it made her think things weren't what you've always said they were." I felt my stomach twist. "What letter?" Daniel looked down. "She didn't show it to me, but she said it hinted that Dad wasn't always faithful. She thinks you knew." Silence hung in the room. I wanted to tell him the truth right then. That his father had been the one who strayed. That I had hidden it to protect Daniel's image of him. But looking at my son, I couldn't do it. He adored his father. That memory was one of the few good things he still carried. So I said softly, "Some things are better left in the past, Daniel." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "That's what Claire said you'd say." He left soon after. And for the first time, he didn't hug me goodbye. That night, I went through my old boxes until I found the letter I thought was gone. Robert's handwriting, faded and trembling. Lorna, I can't ask your forgiveness. I've made mistakes, but please, don't let Daniel think less of me. He needs a father he can believe in. I pressed the paper to my chest and whispered, I kept my promise, Robert, but it's costing me our son. It was strange, really, how quickly a relationship can shift without a single argument. Daniel didn't stop calling all at once. He just started calling less. When he did, the conversations were shorter, practical, polite. No laughter. No warmth. I could feel the distance even through the phone. And yet, I couldn't bring myself to ask why. Maybe I was afraid of the answer. A few months passed before I saw them again. Lily's school was hosting a family fair, and the whole town seemed to be there. Stalls, games, music. I hesitated before going. Part of me worried that Claire wouldn't want me there. But I told myself it was harmless. Just a grandmother watching her granddaughter have fun. When I arrived, I spotted Lily at the beanbag toss, her hair tied in 2 bouncing braids. I waved and called out, Lily! She turned, smiled, and ran toward me. But halfway, she stopped. Claire was standing by the cotton candy stand, her expression unreadable. Lily looked back and forth between us, then walked back to her mother. I froze where I stood, my heart sinking like a stone. Daniel appeared a moment later. Mom, you're here! He smiled, but there was tension behind it. I didn't know you'd come. I just wanted to see her play, I said quietly. Claire approached, her tone calm but firm. Lorna, we really wish you'd told us. We've had a lot going on lately. It's been difficult, I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. I didn't mean to intrude. Daniel interrupted, his voice softer. It's fine. Stay a bit. Lily would like that. But she didn't, not really. Every time I tried to talk to her, Claire was there, gently steering her away. Go play with your friends, sweetheart. Or, don't wander too far. After an hour, I left quietly. No one noticed. That night, I sat on my porch with a blanket over my shoulders. The air smelled like rain, and somewhere down the street a dog barked. I thought about Lily's face, that brief flicker of confusion when she saw me. Children notice more than we think. They can feel tension even when no one says a word, and that's when it hit me. Claire wasn't just keeping me at a distance. She was protecting something. But from what? A week later, Daniel came by again. He looked tired, not just from work this time, from worry. Mom, he said slowly, Claire and I found some old boxes in the attic. Dad's things. Letters, photos, memories. He hesitated, then added, there was another letter. From you, to someone named Helen. My chest tightened. Helen? I repeated quietly. Yes, he said. Claire read it. It sounded personal. I closed my eyes. Helen. That was the woman Robert had been seeing all those years ago. The woman I had written to after discovering the affair. The letter wasn't angry. It was desperate. A plea for her to stay away, to let our family heal. But in Claire's hands, I could only imagine what it looked like. A jealous wife, hiding secrets. Mom, Daniel continued. Claire thinks Dad wasn't the only one involved. She thinks maybe you. He stopped. He didn't finish the sentence, but I knew what he meant. My heart cracked a little then. Not from the accusation, but from realizing he even thought it possible. I took a deep breath and said softly, Daniel, I never betrayed your father. What happened between us? It was complicated, but I never stopped loving him and I never stopped loving you. He looked at me, really looked at me, for a long time. Then he said, why didn't you ever tell me what happened? I smiled sadly. Because you were a boy. You didn't need to carry that pain. You deserve to remember your father is good. He shook his head, frustrated. Mom, secrets don't protect people. They just come back to hurt them later. Those words cut deep because he was right, but not in the way he thought. Still, I didn't explain. I couldn't. I didn't want to destroy his memory of his father, and so I said the only thing I could. I did what I thought was right. Daniel sighed, stood up, and said quietly, "Maybe for you, but not for me." When he left, I watched him walk down the driveway, his shoulders heavy. He didn't turn around. Over the next few weeks, things changed in ways I couldn't quite name. Claire stopped returning my calls. Lily's school photos stopped arriving in the mail. Even Daniel's texts grew formal. "Hope you're well, Mom. No love you, no miss you." Then one day my phone rang. It was Daniel. His voice was cold, flat. "Mom, I think it's best if you give us some space. For Lily's sake." "For Lily's sake?" I repeated softly. He hesitated. "She's been confused. Claire doesn't want her to pick up on tension. Maybe it's best if you don't see her for a while." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. "Daniel, she's my granddaughter." "I know," he said quickly. "It's not forever. Just for now. Can I at least call her?" Silence. Then, "I think it's better if we don't confuse her." Those words, confuse her, felt like a knife. I bit my lip to keep from crying. Finally, I said, "All right, my dear. If that's what you think is best." And that was it. That quiet moment. No shouting, no goodbyes. That was the day my family slipped away from me. The house grew quieter after that. Too quiet. I stopped baking. Stopped leaving the porch light on. I still checked my phone every morning, hoping for a message, but none came. Sometimes I'd walk through the park near their house, pretending I was just taking a stroll. Once I saw Lily playing with friends. I didn't go near her. I just watched from a distance. She laughed, carefree, her hair flying in the wind. When she turned suddenly, our eyes met. She smiled, just for a second, before Claire appeared and led her away. I stood there, frozen. That smile was enough to both break and heal me in the same breath. At night, I'd sit by the window with the old letters spread across the table. Robert's handwriting, mine, even the one to Helen. All of them yellowed, fragile, like memories themselves. I wondered what might have happened if I had told Daniel the truth years ago. If I had said, "Your father made mistakes, but I stayed for you," would he have loved me less? Or more? But regret is a quiet thing. It doesn't shout. It just lingers, whispering what-ifs until you start to believe them. Then one afternoon, I got a small envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a photo. Lily at what looked like her school recital. On the back, in small handwriting, were 3 words. "She misses you." I didn't recognize the handwriting, but I didn't care. I pressed the photo to my heart and cried. It was the first time I'd cried in months, and as the tears fell, I realized something. I had stayed silent for too long. The truth had protected no one. It had only taken everything I loved. That night, I made a decision. I would tell Daniel everything. No more secrets. No more fear. I picked up the phone, but before I could dial, I stopped. Because deep down I knew he wasn't ready to listen yet. Fate would have to speak for me, and it would, just not in the way I expected. The day Daniel told me not to come anymore, the sky was overcast. That kind of dull gray that looks like it's holding its breath before rain. I remember it clearly because I had baked his favorite pie that morning. Apple cinnamon, just the way he liked it when he was a boy. It was sitting on the passenger seat beside me, still warm, the smell filling the car as I drove to his house. I hadn't called first. I just wanted to surprise them, to bring something small, something kind. Something that said, "I'm still here." When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed another car parked out front. Claire's sister's, I think. I smiled, thinking maybe it would be a good day, a family day. But the moment Daniel opened the door, I knew. His face said it all. Tired, guarded, already bracing himself. "Mom, you shouldn't have come." His voice was calm but distant. I held up the pie, forcing a smile. "I just wanted to drop this off. I thought Lily might like some after dinner." He didn't take it. Instead, he looked past me as if trying to find the right words in the air between us. Claire doesn't think it's a good idea for you to keep stopping by. It confuses Lily. The words were soft, but they landed hard. Confuses her how? I asked. She's been asking questions. About why things are tense. We just think it's best to step back. Give her space. Space from her grandmother. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck, a habit he's had since he was little, when he didn't know what to say. Mom, please. Don't make this harder. I felt something collapse inside me, but I didn't cry. Not then. Instead, I nodded slowly and said, "All right, my dear. I understand." I placed the pie gently on the porch railing and turned to go. As I reached my car, I heard the door close behind me. That quiet, final sound again. This time, it echoed. For the first few days, I told myself it was temporary. That they'd come around, that maybe Lily would ask for me and they'd have to call. But days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. The phone stayed silent. Sometimes I'd pick it up just to make sure the line still worked. It always did. Then, one morning, a neighbor, kind woman, Mrs. Jensen, stopped by with groceries. She hesitated before saying, "I saw Daniel and Claire at the market yesterday. Lily's grown so much." I smiled faintly. "I bet she has." Mrs. Jensen hesitated again. "She looks happy, but—" "Are you all right, dear? You don't seem yourself lately," I nodded. "Just a little lonely, that's all." She squeezed my hand gently before leaving. When the door closed, I leaned against it and whispered to myself, "A little lonely." But loneliness isn't little. It grows like ivy, slow at first, then everywhere, until you can't remember what the walls looked like before it covered them. Months later, I received a formal-looking envelope in the mail. It was from Daniel. No handwriting, just printed text. Inside was a short letter. "Mom, we've decided to move. Claire got a job offer in another city. We'll keep in touch, but please don't try to visit right now. Lily needs stability." Daniel, that was it. No return address. I sat there at my kitchen table reading those lines over and over. It felt less like a letter and more like a goodbye. I didn't know what hurt more, that he was leaving, or that he didn't trust me enough to tell me where they were going. That night, I didn't make dinner. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat in the dark, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, and thought about all the times I'd told him stories about family, forgiveness, love, and how easily he'd forgotten them. But deep down, I knew it wasn't really forgetting. It was pain, and pain makes people do strange things. A few days later, I went up to the attic to clean. It was something to do, something to fill the empty hours. The dust was thick, and the light from the small window fell across the old boxes I hadn't touched in years. I opened one, and there it was. Robert's old leather journal. I had almost forgotten about it. The pages were yellowed, but his handwriting was still strong and clear. I turned the pages slowly, careful not to tear them, and then I saw it. An entry dated just a few weeks before his accident. "If something happens to me, I hope Lorna knows the truth. I made mistakes, yes, but she forgave more than I ever deserved. I only wish Daniel will one day understand the kind of woman his mother truly is." I froze. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. For all these years, I had carried guilt, for staying silent, for not explaining, for letting Daniel believe what he wanted to. But here was proof, written in Robert's own hand, that I hadn't been the villain in this story. I closed the journal, pressing it to my chest. It was as if Robert had reached out from the past to give me the courage I needed. The next morning, I decided to do something I hadn't done in a long time. I wrote a letter to Daniel. It wasn't long, just a few pages. I told him everything. About Robert, about Helen, about how I had stayed for him, not for pride. I didn't ask for forgiveness. I just wanted him to know the truth. The quiet truth that had lived inside me for decades. When I finished, I sealed the letter carefully and placed it in the mailbox. No return address, just his name. I didn't even know if he would receive it, but I had to try. Weeks passed, then months. No reply. Life went on in its quiet rhythm. Tea in the mornings, walks by the park, feeding the birds. But something in me had changed. I had let go of the need to be understood. Still, sometimes at night, I'd find myself whispering into the dark. "Do you remember me, Daniel?" It was silly, but I couldn't help it. Motherhood doesn't end when the phone stops ringing. It just goes quiet. Then one spring morning, I received a small envelope. Not in Daniel's handwriting, but Lily's. Childish, uneven letters spelled out, "To Nana Bird." My heart skipped a beat. Inside was a simple drawing, a bird on a tree branch holding a small heart in its beak. And underneath, in wobbly handwriting, it said, "I still remember you." I held that piece of paper like it was made of gold. Tears streamed down my face, but this time they didn't hurt. They healed because in that moment I realized love doesn't disappear. It waits. Even when people forget, even when words are said that shouldn't be, love just waits. And though I didn't know it yet, that small drawing would set everything in motion. It would lead to a truth none of us expected. A truth that would bring Daniel back to my doorstep, not as a son full of pride and distance, but as a man finally ready to listen. It was a rainy afternoon when Daniel found the letter. He told me later that it had arrived months before, tucked between a stack of bills and flyers, and somehow ended up forgotten in his office drawer. He hadn't meant to ignore it. He just assumed it was another birthday card or one of those short notes I used to send before things went cold between us. But that day, as the rain tapped gently against his window and the house felt a little too quiet, he opened the drawer to look for a pen. And there it was. The envelope. My handwriting. He said something about the way his name looked on the paper made him pause. Like the ink carried more weight than he remembered. So he opened it. Inside were my words. Steady, careful, honest. I told him about Robert. How the man he'd worshipped as a child had made mistakes that tore our family apart. How I had found letters between his father and another woman, Helen, and how I had written to her once, not out of hatred, but out of desperation. How I had chosen silence afterward because I wanted Daniel to have at least one clean memory of his father. I told him that I never stopped loving either of them, and that my silence had never been about shame, only protection. At the end, I wrote, "If you ever find this letter, I hope you understand that love sometimes hides in the quietest places. Not in the words spoken, but in the ones held back. I'm not asking you to come back. I only want you to know that you were always loved, even when I didn't know how to show it." He said he read those lines over and over. And when he reached the end, he sat very still. Outside, the rain had stopped. The light through the window had shifted, soft and gold, and for the first time in years, he cried. He didn't tell Claire right away. At first, he just sat with the truth, quietly, painfully, realizing how much time had passed, how much had been lost. That night, he went to tuck Lily into bed. She was older now, 9, her face sharper, but her eyes still full of light. "Daddy," she said sleepily, "did Nana Bird forget about me?" He froze. "Why do you ask that, sweetheart?" "She used to call me every week. I thought maybe I did something wrong." Daniel swallowed hard. "No, baby. You didn't do anything wrong." "Then why doesn't she come anymore?" He brushed her hair gently. "She will," he whispered. "I think she will." The next morning, Daniel told Claire about the letter. She listened quietly, arms crossed at first, defensive, the way people are when they've built walls around their hearts. But as he read it aloud, something in her expression softened. When he finished, she didn't say anything for a long time. Then quietly she asked, "So she knew? All this time?" "Yes," Daniel said. "She knew. And she stayed." "For me," Claire sighed, her eyes glistening. "I thought she hated me." "I thought she didn't want me around because I reminded her of him." Daniel shook his head slowly. "No, I think she just didn't know how to let anyone that close again. They sat together in silence for a long time. Then Claire said, "She sent a letter. You should send one back." But Daniel didn't send a letter. He wanted to do it in person. To see her face, to hear her voice, to let her know he finally understood. So the next weekend, he packed a bag, told Claire he needed to make things right, and drove the 4 hours back to my town. He didn't call ahead. He said he rehearsed what he'd say the whole drive, how he'd apologize, how he'd explain. But when he pulled into my street and saw the small yellow house, the porch light still glowing softly like it always had, all the words left him. That morning, I was sitting in the garden. The rain from the night before had left the air fresh, and the ground smelled like earth and memory. I was pruning the roses, something to keep my hands busy, when I heard a car door close. I looked up, and there he was, my son. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming. He stood at the edge of the walkway, unsure, older somehow, lines at the corners of his eyes, a weariness that hadn't been there before. I didn't move. I just watched him, afraid that if I blinked, he'd disappear. Then quietly he said, "Hi, Mom." That was all it took. The sound of that word, Mom, after so long, cracked something open inside me. I dropped the pruning shears and covered my mouth with both hands. He took a few steps closer. "I got your letter," he said softly. I should have read it sooner. Tears filled my eyes. "It's all right," I whispered. "You read it when you were ready." He nodded slowly. "I didn't know, Mom, about Dad, about any of it. I thought you were hiding something. Or ashamed." I shook my head gently. "No, sweetheart. I was just trying to protect you." He laughed, a small broken sound. "You protected me so well I ended up resenting you." We both smiled through our tears. He came closer and pulled me into his arms. For a long time, neither of us spoke. I could feel his heartbeat against mine, steady and real. After all those years, my son was home. When he finally stepped back, he wiped his face and said, "Lily misses you. She still calls you Nana Bird." I laughed softly through my tears. "I got her drawing," he smiled. "She never stopped thinking about you." Then his voice grew quiet again. "Claire wants to see you too." She didn't understand. I didn't help her understand. I shook my head. "There's nothing to forgive. We were all just trying to survive our pain." He nodded. "I want us to start over, if you'll let us." I reached out and touched his cheek, that familiar face I once kissed goodnight every day of his childhood. "There's nothing to start over from," I said softly. "There's only now." That afternoon, we sat on the porch for hours. He told me about his work, about Lily's school, about how Claire had been volunteering at the library. And I told him about the garden, the birds, the quiet things that had filled my days. It felt like time was slowly, gently mending itself, thread by thread. When he finally stood to leave, he turned to me and said, "I'll bring them next weekend." "I promise," I smiled. "I'll bake the pie." He laughed, shaking his head. "Of course you will." And then he was gone. But this time, when the door closed, it didn't sound final. It sounded like hope. That night, I sat in my kitchen, the smell of rain still lingering through the open window, and whispered to the empty room, "Thank you." I didn't know who I was thanking, fate, love, or just time itself. But I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. The kind of peace that comes only after you've walked through the longest silence and still found your way back home. The next weekend, the knock on the door came early, just as the morning sun filtered through the curtains. I had been in the kitchen, washing dishes, when I heard it. I wiped my hands on a towel and opened the door. There they were. Daniel, tall and steady, Claire, hesitant but smiling softly, and Lily, bouncing on her toes, clutching a small bouquet of wildflowers she had picked herself. "Hi, Nana Bird," Lily squealed. Before I could respond, she was in my arms wrapped around my neck, laughter spilling like sunlight. I laughed too, a sound I hadn't realized I'd missed so much. "Hello, my sunshine," I said softly, holding her tight. Her hair smelled like spring, like grass and rain and little adventures. Claire stepped closer, still a little unsure. "Hi, Lorna," she said quietly. Her voice wasn't formal this time. It was gentle. I didn't understand before. I thought I was protecting Lily, but I see now how much she missed you." I nodded, smiling through tears. "It's all right, dear. I know you were trying to do what's best." Daniel put his hand on hers and said softly, "She was. I didn't help her understand. That's my fault too." We stood there for a moment, 3 adults, silent, hearts trying to find the words that had gone missing for so long. Then Lily tugged at my sleeve. "Grandma, can we go play in the garden?" I laughed and took her hand. "Of course, little one." That afternoon, the house felt alive again. Lily ran around, playing with the birds in the garden, while Daniel and Claire helped me with small chores, trimming the roses, watering the herbs. It was quiet work, the kind that doesn't demand conversation, yet heals everything. At one point, Daniel paused and looked at me. "I'm sorry, Mom, for all of it. For the months we stayed away. For not listening." I shook my head, my voice soft. "There's nothing to forgive, Daniel. We all just needed to wait until the time was right." He smiled faintly, brushing a stray leaf off his jacket. "Time is long when you're waiting." "And sometimes it's worth it," I said. Lily came running in with a handful of flowers. "Look, Grandma, I made a bouquet for you." I took the flowers and kissed her forehead. "You have the most beautiful hands, Lily, just like your mother used to have." Claire smiled at that, the tension slowly melting from her shoulders. "You always said that?" she asked softly. I nodded. I said it to her every day, just like I said it to Daniel. For a while, we sat together on the porch, just watching the garden, listening to Lily's laughter. The distance that had grown over months, even years, felt like it was gently dissolving. Later that evening, Daniel and I sat in the living room, quiet for a moment. "I kept your letter," he said finally. "I read it again today before we came over. And I understand now, everything." I nodded, my hands folded in my lap. "I never wanted to hurt you, Daniel. I just wanted to protect you from a pain you didn't need to carry at the time." He smiled softly. "You did, but hiding it made me lose so much. I almost forgot how much love there was here." I reached out and took his hand. "And now?" I asked gently. "Now," he said, "we find it again." The first dinner after their return was quiet, tentative. Claire helped me in the kitchen, chopping vegetables side by side. Daniel set the table carefully, making sure Lily had her favorite cup. And Lily, of course, laughed and told stories with unrestrained joy. We ate slowly, savoring not just the food, but the moment. The house felt warm again, not the loud, bustling warmth of the past, but a deeper, quieter comfort. Comfort born from understanding, forgiveness, and love finally spoken aloud. After dinner, Lily brought out her notebook. "I drew something for you, Grandma," she said proudly. Inside were pictures of our garden, our house, even the 3 of us sitting together. She had drawn hearts around all of us. I pressed the notebook to my chest. "You've made my heart so full, Lily," I whispered. She leaned against me, and for a moment, nothing else mattered. That night, when the house was finally quiet, I sat by the window, looking out at the stars. I could hear the faint hum of Lily sleeping in the guest room. Claire had said goodnight softly, and Daniel had kissed my cheek. I thought about the months we had lost, the empty calls, the silence, the misunderstandings. But I didn't dwell on them. Because now we had found our way back, I whispered to myself, "Love waits. Always." And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. The next morning, the sun spilled through the curtains, golden and warm, as if it knew today was a new beginning. I made tea for everyone, just simple black tea with a hint of honey, and set the table on the porch. Lily came bounding out first, still half asleep but full of energy. "Grandma, can we make pancakes later?" she asked eagerly. "Of course, little one," I said, smiling. Her excitement was infectious, and soon Daniel and Claire joined us on the porch. We ate breakfast slowly, talking about small things. Lily's school projects, Daniel's work, Claire's new hobbies. There were no arguments, no tension, only the soft rhythm of conversation between people who had missed each other. After breakfast, Daniel said quietly, "Mom, I've been thinking about the past, about all the misunderstandings. I want you to know I finally understand. I see how much you've always loved us." I nodded, reaching out to touch his hand. "You were always loved, Daniel, even when it didn't look like it." He smiled softly, a little embarrassed by his tears from yesterday. "I was angry for a while, but I see now that it wasn't anger at you. It was confusion and fear." Claire joined in, her eyes on Lily as she spoke gently. "I'm sorry too, Lorna. I didn't see how much Lily wanted you around. I was trying to protect her. I thought I was helping." I shook my head. "You did what you thought was right. None of us hurt each other on purpose." She smiled faintly, and it felt like the last barrier had lifted. "I'd like us to start fresh," she said. "All of us." I nodded, my heart full. Yes, all of us. The day was spent in small, quiet ways. We worked together in the garden, planting new flowers and trimming the old ones. Lily helped me water the plants, laughing as the droplets fell on her arms. Daniel and Claire sat on the porch, talking and smiling at the same time. I watched them all and felt a gentle warmth spread through my chest. The kind of warmth that comes when you realize that even after distance, even after months of silence, love finds its way back. Later, we made pancakes just as Lily had asked. She stood on a chair at the counter, stirring the batter with enthusiasm. "I'm helping Grandma," she declared proudly. Claire watched and laughed softly. "You really know how to make her happy?" she said to me. I smiled, glancing at her. "It's easy when she's this wonderful." Daniel came over to taste a sample pancake and gave me a thumbs up. "Perfect as always, Mom," he said. That evening, after Lily was asleep, we sat in the living room. Daniel and Claire sipped tea while I rocked gently in my chair, looking at the fire in the hearth. "You know," Daniel said thoughtfully, "we've lost a lot of time. But maybe losing it was necessary, so we could learn how to truly appreciate it." I nodded slowly. "Yes, sometimes distance makes the heart remember what it really wants." Claire reached across the table and held my hand softly. "Thank you for never giving up on us," she whispered. I felt tears prick my eyes, but they were the soft kind, the kind that comes with relief, gratitude, and love. "You never stopped caring either," I said gently. The days that followed were full of quiet reconnection. We went on small walks in the park. We played board games in the living room. We cooked meals together, sometimes laughing at burnt edges or spilled sauce. And always, Lily's laughter filled the spaces between us. Every day, the bond grew stronger. We still had moments of tension. Old habits die slowly, but the silence that once separated us was gone. One afternoon, I found a drawing Lily had made and left on my table. It was of our family, Daniel, Claire, Lily, and me, holding hands in the garden. Above it, in big wobbly letters, she had written, "Family is forever." I held it close and whispered, "Yes, my darling. Family is forever." That night, I went to bed with a sense of calm I hadn't felt in years. The kind of calm that comes not from forgetting the pain, but from understanding it, forgiving it, and letting it go. Weeks later, Daniel and Claire invited me for a weekend stay at their new home. I was hesitant at first, worried old tensions might return. But when I arrived, Lily ran into my arms as if no time had passed at all. We spent the weekend baking, reading stories, and playing in the backyard. Claire laughed openly, and Daniel teased Lily gently. The house was alive again, full of warmth, full of love, full of second chances. And in those small moments, I realized something profound. Family isn't perfect. It's messy, complicated, sometimes distant, but love can always find its way back. That night, as I watched Lily fall asleep in the guest room, I whispered softly, "Thank you, fate. Thank you for giving us this chance. And for the first time in a long time, I truly believed that even after heartbreak, even after years of silence, love could endure. Quietly, patiently, endlessly. The house was quiet that night. Only the soft hum of the wind through the trees and the faint creak of the floorboards. Lily was asleep in the guest room, dreaming, I hoped, of happy things. Daniel and Claire were in the living room, talking softly, planning tomorrow's day together. And I sat in my chair by the window, looking out at the garden. The roses I had pruned months ago had begun to bloom again, vibrant and full. It felt like a promise, a quiet reminder that even after winter, life could flourish again. I thought about the months we had lost, the distance, the silence, the misunderstandings. I thought about how easy it had been to believe that love had slipped through our fingers, how cruel it felt to be left outside the life of the people I loved most. But then I remembered the small signs along the way, Lily's drawing in the mail, the bouquet of wildflowers she handed me, the way Daniel's voice softened when he finally read my letter. Love had been waiting all along, patiently, quietly, faithfully. It reminded me of something important. Family is not measured in time alone. It's measured in care, in understanding, in the moments you fight to come back to each other, no matter how far apart life pulls you. I whispered to the empty room, "Love waits, always." And I felt it. Not just in my heart, but in every corner of that house, in every laugh, in every touch, in the garden where Lily played. It was a gentle, steady truth. That even when we are hurt, even when misunderstandings build walls between us, love does not forget. The next morning, we had breakfast together on the porch. The sun was warm, spilling across the table, touching each of us with its golden light. Lily laughed as she spilled juice on the tablecloth. Daniel helped clean it up, and Claire teased her gently. And I just watched, my heart full, my hands folded around my cup of tea. Everything was not perfect. There were still old wounds, old shadows of doubt. But we were together. And that mattered more than anything else. I thought about fate, about the twists and turns that had brought us to this moment. How a small piece of paper, a letter from a mother to a son, had reopened the door that years of silence had closed. How patience, understanding, and a willingness to forgive had quietly healed us all. I realized that life doesn't give second chances to everyone. But when it does, it is worth holding on to them with both hands. As the day stretched into afternoon, I felt a quiet contentment settle over me. I knew there would be more challenges ahead, more misunderstandings, more bumps along the road. But I also knew that love, once remembered and nurtured, would guide us through. And I whispered one last time, softly, to the wind and to the world. Family is forever. And love always finds a way back. I rose from my chair and stepped into the garden, where Lily's laughter echoed among the flowers. Daniel and Claire followed, smiling at her joy, smiling at the gentle peace we had all found again. And I stood there, feeling the sun on my face, feeling hope in my chest, and knowing, truly knowing, that sometimes the hardest journeys lead to the most beautiful destinations, even after loss, even after silence, even after heartbreak. Love waits. And when it returns, it is stronger than ever.